Yes.
Eliminated. So we're just playing games.
We are going round in circles. But you see, going round in circles, as you may have observed by looking at the sky, is what the universe is doing. You see, before,
As long as we recognize we're going around, we're all right.
yes, that's the thing, it's a dance. And when you dance, you don't dance to get somewhere. Yes, all right, but you turn, when you wake up, you turn the confusion into a dance. And so I go back to your question, what is the alternative to clearing out of the job you're doing? And to say doing with less but having more fun. Well, there are ways of making almost any activity into a dance. Supposing you had to drive a bus in New York, which is a very harrowing job in the ordinary way, you must not take seriously anything about it. This is the first rule. That it doesn't matter a damn if you don't get there on time, but it would be fun to go as fast as is consistent with safety. And therefore, you swing that bus, and you play things with the horn, you take the whole thing lightly, as if it is not serious. And this is the nature, say, in ritual, when you have a procession. Now, people who don't understand religion don't know how to make the right kind of processions. There are those who go a military march, and they don't understand it because their objective is to get there. There are those who dawdle like ducks, and they don't understand because they are trying to be dignified. On the other hand, there are those who walk as if they had already arrived. And this is the way kings walk. Because a king is the center, and he is always where it's at. Where it's at is where the king is by definition. So, if you work in this way, people who are practicing meditation take up monotonous things for fun. And meditation is supposed to be fun. I hope John Lilly told you that this morning. Where you say you're going to do Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. You know, you can really have a gas doing that. And so that anything monotonous can be treated in the same way. This is one of the ways of overcoming boredom.
Hello?
Because boredom's the great problem for energy. See, energy is always on the go.
Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, the gentleman in the white shirt here.
Does the Father used to be called mythic sometimes by people who are like the idea of existence?
Mythic? No. Mythic is a great word. The question is, does it bother me to be called mythic? No. Myth is very powerful. Myth is fun. Myth is stories told to children. Everybody loves them. Yes, sir. What?
Is God omniscient?
Is God omniscient? Well, it depends what you mean by the word. A lot of people think that omniscience is like knowing everything that's in the Encyclopedia Britannica. That's not omniscience, that's intellectual elephantiasis. Now, you see, let me explain this question because it's always important. And when anybody announces that he or she is God, people say at once, well, will you tell us in millimeters the height of Mont Blanc? When I say, look it up in the encyclopedia, it's there. The thing is this. What we ordinarily call knowledge is the translation of life into words. And that is a very cumbersome process because if we had to translate the process into words every time we took a breath, we'd never get around to it. It takes so long to describe and think through the whole physiology of breath. Therefore, we do it without thinking about it. And I find that I'm shining the stars in just the same way. I mean, if you want it in words, it's going to take us a long time to get through them because words are strung out in a line.
Is that a sense that internally we are
how do you, if you are God, how do you find such difficulty in finding peace and tranquility in yourself? That's because you're looking for it away from the place in which you are. You are seeking it apart from the experience which you have at this moment. And you are regarding that experience and saying, that's pretty lousy, I'd like something better than that. But the trouble with that is that it splits you in two pieces. And once you're split in two pieces, you're lost. Because you've made a difference between the experience you are now having on the one hand and yourself who is having it on the other. And you wish you could get away from that experience. Now, the truth of the matter is you can't, because you are what you experience. It's a myth purely that there is some sort of experiencer who has the experience. You are what you know, because it is not I know something, there is simply a process called the knowing. You could say the knowing, like the world, has two poles, north and south. And so the knowing ball has the knower and the known, but only in that sense. Now, knowing changes. It changes itself. But if you try to stand outside it and change it, it'll be like standing outside your hand and trying to move your hand from outside. And so comes the difficulty. In other words, this would be the difficulty for God in the press button surprise situation, where you think you want something different from what you have. But if you do think that, you've got to ask yourself the question, what it is that you really want. This is the most fundamentally important question. And you will find, if you go into it very, very deeply, that you have it. Now, you may change your mind about it, but you do have what you want.
God, if this place caught on fire, I would find myself so scared that I wonder if I would also feel that I was God, and if I am God and scared, what do I do about that?
Well, one of the ways of not being bored is to scare yourself.
Yes.
Don't we all go to the movies just to be scared? We put certain limits on it, indeed, before we go and say well, this isn't really going to happen. It's only a play or a movie. And therefore, while we see the safe outline of the proscenium arch, back in the back of our minds, as a sort of Hintergedanke, we know it's only a play.
I'm talking about when it isn't only.
How do you know it isn't? If you see, after all, the task of the actor on the stage is to come on so well that the audience thinks it's real, so that he has them crying, so that he has them shaking with fear, so that he has them sitting on the edges of their chairs. Well, that's just one ordinary Joe Dokes actor, but supposing the actor of the play is the real big actor. Wow, that play would seem real. So that's what happens when the house catches on fire. Yes, lady in red. Yes, you're looking behind yourself.
God, what is sleep for you?
What is sleep? The seventh day. What? When is the seventh day? When you sleep. Yes.
Yes, God. The only reason I know that I'm God is because I take the responsibility for it.
Yes.
Doesn't that answer the lady's question about the fire?
Oh, yes, that also would answer it, yes. It's a question of taking responsibility for what happens.
What happens if you don't do anything about it?
If I don't do anything about the world,
What's
the boredom.
What's through the boredom?
Well, that's another way. That's another way. You can explore boredom. You can bore into boredom and watch it. Sometimes when you're bored, that's the only thing to do. Because even for God, you can't lift yourself up by your own bootstraps. Because that is by nature of the definition impossible.
You said you would enjoy having a myth of you.
Yes, I think that would be fun. I mean, why else does one go on stage except to make myths? What?
Why not?
Excuse me, what did you say? What is my motivation for going on the stage? That is like asking, why is there a universe? Well, now, if you listened to George Leonard last night, George Leonard explained how children were befuddled by being taught to ask why about everything. Because you always look away from what you're asking about to its antecedents, and that won't lead you anywhere at all. Why am I here? And I answer that question. Then somebody says, well, why that? And then somebody says, well, why that? Why that? Why that? And you get back and back and back, and eventually you get tired of answering. And so fathers, when their children say, why, Daddy? Why? They say, oh, shut up and eat your lollipop. But what happens, you see, when we trace the causation of things into the past, it all begins to fade out in silence and no answer. Why? Because it didn't begin there. The universe begins now. It didn't begin in the past. And the past trails back from now like the wake of a ship.
If everything is God and there is no time except now, what is the role of chance?
If everything is God and there is no time except now, what is the role of chance? Chance pairs with order. We'll say randomness, we'll call it, and it pairs with order. And it is part of the nature of order. If you know what you mean by order, you know that you mean contrast with randomness. And if you know what you mean by randomness, you know that you mean contrast with order. So if you want to have order, you must have randomness, and vice versa. Yes?
Did you have this much charisma before you discovered your true nature?
Yes, but it came out in a different way. Yes.
I think there's a sort of danger here, though. The riddles are funny, and if you had time enough to think each one through, they'd be very profound. There's a certain danger of everything and everyone being God, because if you've really found yourself as God, then you know that certain things that you, as God, have created that don't personally affect you, you create for a reason, you stay out of them, and you aren't a do-gooder. But if you think you're God, and then you try to go into too much social action and change the evils of this world, you end up hurting yourself and a lot of people, and you're playing God, and you're not really being God.
Well, I admit to you, my dear, that this is a very, very dangerous conversation. And that I thoroughly agree with, but we didn't come here, did we, to play it safe? All profound ideas and profound questions are dangerous. It is dangerous to go into science, as we all know too well. It is dangerous to go into medicine, dangerous to go into writing, because the pen is often mightier than the sword. And so I don't think we should withdraw from certain things because they're dangerous. But I entirely agree with you that if I were, as it were, in the spirit of God to go about social reform, I would be failing to realize the construction of my own universe, which is that when you interfere with it, you've got to know exactly how you're interfering. Otherwise, the most amazingly unexpected things will happen. So when people ask for miracles, they don't realize what the miracles involve. I mean, if I turned the microphone into a rabbit, it's altogether possible that you might drop dead, because those events might be connected.
Did you ever study with Carl Jung?
Did I ever study with Carl Jung?
Work with him?
I didn't study with him. I knew him, and I read a lot of his writings. Yes.
The notion of watching yourself, like watching your boredom, or being aware of yourself, imply that there's a separation somewhere.
It does in a way, yes. And it depends how you're watching. There is a very interesting thing that comes up in this respect with regard to the Bhagavad Gita and to the Yoga Sutra, where they talk about the witness. There is, as it were, behind our ordinary self with its emotions and involvements, a witness self that does nothing more than perceive what happens. And this is the Atman, or the Purusha, which is not involved. And some of you, no doubt, especially in times of crisis, have suddenly discovered this sort of witness center behind everything that just isn't involved. Most terrible things can be going on, but the witness is impassive. Now, when we go into these states, we've got to be very careful of our descriptive language, because the descriptive language makes the witness seem something apart from what is happening in such a way that if we want to become really sort of skidsy and catatonic about things, we can always be withdrawn and go in and identify ourselves with a solitary and uninvolved witness who is merely a hangout for the ego, as when the police raid a house in which there are burglars. And the burglars know they'll be caught if they're on the ground floor, so they go up to the first floor. So then the police come up to the first floor, they're up to the second, finally they get to the roof, where the open sky and the infinite. And in this way, this was why the Buddha did not teach about the Atman, the real self within us, because he knew people would use the real self as a hideout for the ego. And so when, say, Krishnamurti tries to explain this, he doesn't talk about the witness. He talks about awareness, and people say to him, but who is aware? What is aware? And he seems a little sticky in his answer here, because what is the matter is that the people asking the question are bewitched by grammar. They are using a language in which it is part of the grammatical convention that the verb always have a noun subject. Now, how on earth do verbs get started by nouns? I ask you. How can a thing start a process? Surely, this was really the same problem Descartes was wrestling with when he tried to find out how spirit could influence matter, or how mind could influence body. Because everybody knows that all proper ghosts walk straight through walls without disturbing the bricks. So how can the ghost in the machine, as Koestler put it, the soul in the body, how can it do anything to the body? With no connection. Two different realms. The point is that when we're talking about this awareness, what we call thought, feeling, sensation, emotion, we could say in a very clumsy way is it's aware of itself. It's the very nature. There wouldn't be sensation without awareness. You don't have to have something which is aware of it, any more than you have to have a thing called lightning, which does something called flashing. The flashing is the lightning. And so awareness is the one who's aware of it. Could say this awareness, if I say I am aware, the word I, as William James suggested, is simply a word of position, like this or here. Awareness here. And your awareness there. Yes, sir.
Like one great koan that Lord before.
Yes, life is like one great koan. No, death is not the solution. It has no solution. Otherwise, it wouldn't happen. You see, the thing is like this. This is what is hard for Westerners especially to understand. I said, if you understand the yang and the yin, you don't need to ask any further questions. And all you I Ching buffs ought to know this by now. What is not a component of Western common sense is that nothing is something. Now that may sound a little contradictory, but I think I can explain it. We treat nothingness as if it were ineffective, as if it wasn't really important at all. And yet, when we look out at the night and we see all these stars in space, try and imagine what the heavens would look like if there weren't any space. Then obviously there wouldn't be any stars. I mean, you could think that they would all be jammed together in a lump. There are various objections to that. How would you see the edge of the lump and know it was a lump without space around it? Furthermore, we know when we investigate the constitution of matter physically that at the atomic level there's more space in something than there is anything else. Most of it is empty, and which led a physicist at the Argonne lab at the University of Chicago, who had become a little nutty. He was so impressed with the emptiness of matter that he went around in the most enormous padded slippers in case he should fall through the floor. So now what the point I'm making is this. If space is essential to solid, it's perfectly obvious then that nothing is essential to something. If you can't have something without nothing, it means nothing is pretty powerful stuff. Because something comes out of it. Like that. It's a dogma of Western thought expressed in the Latin phrase ex nihilo nihil fit. Out of nothing comes nothing. But that's not so. Out of nothing comes something. Now you would say, well, if something comes out of nothing, there must be some kind of mystery inside nothing. It must have a secret structure of some kind. I mean, there must be sort of electrical goings on. This is the trouble they have about cosmology. How could this world generate? Could it just be out of free-floating hydrogen? No, it's just a much simpler idea than that. It comes out of real, solid nothing. It's so simple.
You've been listening to Alan Watts in On Being God, delivered in New York City in 1971. It's from our Philosophy and Society series, and to download this and other similar recordings, please visit alanwatts.org. Today's broadcast was brought to you by the Ramdas Be Here Now Podcast Network. Thanks for listening.
Because on any given day, we're all mechanics, carpenters, fixers, DIYers, and training wheel taker-offers. We also know no one should overpay for dependable tools to do the work, the building, the fixing, the DIY, the training wheel taking offer. So whatever you do it for less at Harbor Freight.
Let's consider this room our temple, for we are investing it with a great deal of Shakti and love. When you come in here, come in quietly. Begin to honor the space. Tomorrow morning, the incredible Hanuman, which is already, Hanuman has already gone into, so it is quite living, will be hung on the wall over there, just at kissable height, so that you can all share in investing it with the proper amount of love. And then it will be hung on the wall of the little Hanuman temple we will have in New York. For it's really a thing of great beauty. There has been a very large amount of input today already. For some of you who already have a deep philosophical structure of what this is all about, it's all second nature to you. For others, you are totally confused. Happy, feeling a sense of well-being, perhaps, but confused. That's okay. For I've said before, and I'll say again, the forms are not what it's about. What you are receiving this weekend, and I think you're beginning to understand what I'm talking about, you are receiving a transmission of the living spirit through a lineage. And you don't have to know all the words to receive the transmission, by any means. Often when you're in India, you can go to a wang, a Tibetan wang, where for 8 or 9 days there will be sutras recited. You will not understand a word of it, but you still receive the transmission. Or as I said earlier today, we are beginning now to acknowledge realities other than that which is comfortable to the rational mind. And Hanuman is certainly a beginning of that. This morning, when we were out on the lawn doing the breathing, we went up over our heads, came back down into our heart. Up over the head, back down into the heart. You wish we went close into the quiet, impersonal presence of God. We came back into our emotional involvement with humanity. Now that is a pattern of this lineage. And that's why Hanuman is characterized as kneeling and is represented as a servant of Ram, a servant of God. For once a being has worked out their individual karma, his or her individual karma, by surrendering into God, you come to a point where you, now I'm not talking about your body is merely your package, but you, the wires that attach you to this plane are so subtle that with one snip, you go into God. You merge back into that which is without form. You do. And what is left behind is the residue of the package. Your body's left behind. And your astral body is all dissolved, and you are slowly, your physical body disintegrates, goes back into dust, into earth. You leave. Most beings, when they get to that point, recognize a choice. The choice is, at that point, of going into not the samadhis that you go into prior to that, where your breath stops, your body becomes stiff, and you go out of your body. Those are different levels of samadhi. There are even samadhis where your body doesn't stiffen. But there is a choice of going into what's called Mahasamadhi, which is where you indeed leave your body behind and merge back into God. Now you understand, most people that die don't have this option because they still have a lot of personal karma. And that personal karma, it's like you are say this flower with a soul. It has connected with it a lot of what would be called, I don't know what you want to call them. There are names in Buddhism, Hinduism, everything for it. Sanskaras, they're predisposing tendencies, you might call it. It's like a DNA code. It's clingy stuff. It's a set of desires that are still lurking in you. And this soul demands a form again to keep working out these desires. The desires keep projecting out a form. They keep creating form. The form may not be on the physical plane like this. You may end up in heaven. That would be nice. But after so many 100 years or 1,000 years, because time is different on each of these planes, it's still time, but it's different units of time. You use up that karma, and you leave that plane. You may just discorporate. You may not die because you don't die on those planes. And then you are still an entity with certain karma, and you might come back then and take another human birth. But at some point in your evolution, you come to the point where the veil is very thin because the desires, the personal desires, are pretty well gone. There's nothing much you want. You're not attached to being in any particular form in heaven or earth. Everything is what it is, and you can acknowledge it. So, yes, you're right here. The only pull that is there now is the pull to merge back into God, which is like the pull in sex after a long foreplay, the pull for the orgasm. And as you approach that moment, your third eye is wide open, your eye be single, your being be full of light. You see the entire scene. You understand karma. You understand the laws. You understand the divine law of the universe. You understand all the Buddha fields. You understand the whole way of samskara. You are wisdom at that moment. You see that all form is suffering. You see that anything in time has suffering in it. You see just what Buddha saw before he enunciated the Four Noble Truths. That moment you have choice. Choice to give up the form, go into the formless, or choice to play in the formless but come back into the form. Why would you come back into the form? It's what in Tibetan Buddhism is called the Bodhisattva vow. Why would you come back into the form? Not because of your personal karma anymore. That's all over. There's nothing in you pulling. You don't want anything. You even see the perfection of the universe. You see the perfection of God's work. You even see that the suffering itself, because you began to see that the suffering was what awakened you, you begin to see that the suffering is grace, even though most people don't see it because they're too deep in the illusion. Were there no need for the suffering, there would be no need for this world, and none of us would be on this plane at all. Wouldn't exist. This exists because of the karmic needs of the people on it. What you experience is collective karma. You identify with the suffering of all sentient beings. And that identification can keep you in form. At that point, your form is no longer personal. You are at that moment an instrument of God. You are at that moment, just as Buddha was when he returned from his enlightenment, you are an instrument of the Dharma. You are a statement which will enlighten those that are ready to be enlightened. That is your only function. It's the only reason you're on earth. The only reason you're here at all. For you're not going to get your rushes here, since your rushes come from orgasm with the infinite. And when you've had a lover like that, there's nothing in the world that has much pull. You can enjoy it all, but you have the choice to go into God. You have the choice to have it all. Why take little bits of it? See, at this point, you come here, the setting is beautiful, you will have some deep meditations, but then the pull of the world will be strong, and it'll pull you back, and you'll have to make an effort to meditate. When those feet shift, when the weight shifts, you just sit in meditation, and then you think, oh, now I have to leave this to go into form. And the weight has shifted. It's like getting up out of a bed where you're all cuddly on a cold morning to go and light the fire, or let the dog out, or the cat in, or change the baby, or go to work. When this balance of feet shifts, when you start to awaken, it dawns on you that the whole game is perfect. The whole game is perfect, including all the shit you've been through. It's all perfect. Even the way man's will screws it all up. It's still all, there's perfection in it. There is a tendency to get enamored of the impersonal, the cold impersonal, the beauty of it all, the beauty of the Leela. And you keep saying, but it's all an illusion anyway. What are we getting so upset about? Nothing to do, it's all an illusion. You get so fascinated with God, with enlightenment, with the wisdom of the ages. And in your zeal to do that, it's very easy to forget humanity, to forget politics, to forget human concerns, to forget human suffering, to overlook the daily stuff around you. The image I've used in lectures that I got from my teacher, you get so busy looking at the snow, the pure white snow and the peaks of the Himalayas, because for so many incarnations you've been looking out and down, and you finally look up and it's so beautiful. You've never been identified with so much beauty in your life that you'd rather not have to look back down and see that right beneath your feet is blood on the snow, which is the blood from the heart of Jesus. It's the blood of the suffering of form. It's the pull of humanity. It's the pull of humanity. Now, does it seem premature that I'm talking about this to you? After all, most of you are much more pulled by humanity than you are by God. You are much more concerned with the crying of your child, or the hurt of the puppy dog, or the inequality in politics, or the way in which blacks are treated, or the way in which the religious struggles of peoples. Why am I talking to you about the pull of humanity? That's your problem. See, some of you have the disquieting feeling, I've got to be careful because all these people that go to God, they forget about the world. And what about politics? And what about economics? And what about social responsibility? Am I really playing my part in the dance? As you go up, if you're going up in perfection, as you go up, you keep looking down as well as up. You have one eye going up and one eye going down. One eye is in the world and one eye is in God. If both eyes are in the world, you have nothing to offer mankind except more suffering, because you are lost in the illusion. If both eyes are on God, you've forgotten about the world and you couldn't care less, so you don't offer them anything anyway. The predicament is that when you start this journey, you get a little bit of clarity and you want to rush and use it for other people to help your family, your friends, others who are suffering. But that desire is not one that is without attachment. It is an attached desire. It has to do with the guilt that maybe you got something special. It has to do with your attachment to their suffering. And the motivation for why you're doing that does not liberate those people. What most of you will do to help other human beings will help them on one level. On the physical level, if you feed somebody and fill their belly, you help them. If you give them clothing, if you help them raise food, if you help them with medical things, if you help them because they're hurt, if you help them because they're lost, you have helped them on the physical plane, but your motivation for helping them may well have been such that though you helped them on one plane, you perpetuated the illusion of their separateness and thus their suffering. To know that does not drive you to not serve, but it drives you to remember and serve humanity as an exercise and a vehicle for becoming enlightened. For ultimately, the only thing that frees another being is a free being. As Ramakrishna said, if you are in quicksand, you cannot free another from quicksand. I'm an example of that. I'm not a fully realized being. And quite honestly, it's very difficult for me to leave my meditations with God to come and do this. This is my work. This is humanity. This is the pull. I have to do this. This is part of my being. This is my route to God. I've got to do this. But as I do it, I am only doing it as an exercise for my own liberation, because if I am doing it motivated to helping you as my motivation, I am attached to me being a helper and you being that which is help, and I am actually pushing you away in the way I'm helping you as somebody who needs to be helped. In the long run, I am perpetuating your illusion of separateness. That's a very subtle point, and it may be just too much for you to grasp. Do any of you hear what I'm talking about? And what I just said is part of the way, in words, that you are protected from that illusion that I still retain. Because I'm telling you, there it exists. But more directly, what's doing it is that in my heart and my being, my work is with God, and you are the instruments and the vehicles of my coming to God. And because of that, you are protected. I can't explain to you the subtlety of the way this works, because it's an astral type subtlety, but you are totally protected from being hurt in the spiritual sense by my being, because of the purity of my commitment to God. Maharaji in India once said, I said, Maharaj, you can't send me back to America because I'm so impure, and I don't mind my own karma, but I can't stand laying karma on other people. And Maharaji said, Ramdas could not hurt anybody in America. And the not hurting anybody comes not because everything I say is totally the statement of God, but because of my motivation in being with you. For I don't, in truth, want power over you. I don't want to control you. I don't want you to worship me. I don't want to collect you. I don't need you. There is no rush that you give me that is anywhere near 1/1000th what I can get from sitting down in front of my puja table and being in love with God. Not 1/1000th of it. It is that preoccupation with God in me that is what liberates you through whatever it is that I do with you. It's because I don't want you and I don't need you. For if there was the least vibration in me of wanting you or needing you, that would feed your paranoia. It would feed the place in you that is looking, because of your long history of being had, looking for the way in which you are being conned or exploited this round. Most of you, since you were little children, closed off from trusting other human beings because everybody wanted something. They wanted your body, they wanted your soul, they wanted your mind, they wanted your money, they wanted your power, they wanted something. They wanted your adoration, your adulation, they wanted something. And that closed offness closes you off not only from your fellow man, it closes you off from the flow of the universe. It closes you off from God. You can't afford the paranoia that most of you have lived with most of your life. The funny thing is you don't need it either, because you aren't as vulnerable as you thought you were. As you begin to recognize who you are, as I'm trying to show you who you are is not vulnerable to the human foibles. Nobody can do anything to your soul that way. They can screw around with your body and your mind. But you aren't as vulnerable as you think you are. And before you will know God, You will be able to stand naked and wide open, with heart wide open, as all of the possible horror shows of humanity surround you and pour on you and through you. You will be able to look at disaster, at starvation, at flood, at horror, at death of beloveds. You will be able to look at violence, at ugliness, whether it's done to you or another, with your heart wide open, with blood pouring out of it upon the snow. And at the same moment, that other eye is looking up and sees the total perfection of the dance. And you will have perfect equanimity. Most of you now, when it gets ugly, you turn your heart off. You get cold, you go into your mind in order to protect yourself because you feel so vulnerable. And most marriages are battles of who's hurting who. When you understand what this dance is, nobody can hurt anyone else. If you come on to me and you're ugly and angry and violent, that's your karma. If I react to it, that's my karma. And my work is on myself, not on you. And if I'm sitting with a partner who is true and a bitch, that is her karma. If I get stuck in it, and when I know I'm going to God, I eat that bitchiness. That is known as consuming fire. What I was talking about is supper time. They have some mechanism. This is very heavy stuff. I really have to get very small doses because this is like baklava. You know, it's very thick and rich, and you get nauseous if you eat too much. It's funny to run these workshop things, you know? Because I know that about a 15-minute message is really about the capacity, when it's dense, of human consciousness. But then we have 24 hours a day. And it's very delicate to design a dance that allows for the density of this transmission. And if we went on for a month, we would get so there would be 15-minute messages about 3 times a day, and all the rest would be meditation. That's all you really need. But you don't know you need that yet. So I have to keep doing this stuff because you think you need it. You got to understand how humorous the whole bizarre predicament is we're all caught in. You see, up to a year and a half ago, I had been trained in many ways. I had a guru. My guru left his body. I was honored and respected as a spiritual teacher in America. I had my gig down pretty cool. People loved me, respected me, honored me. I could earn a living. Be here now is Maharaji's gift to everybody through me. I could have ridden that for this lifetime. And I have a great love of humanity, but it wasn't pure. Because the balance wasn't even, because I wasn't deep enough in God. I knew of
deci voluntas mes, et in mane me quesieret, in taverna post vesperam nudus et redietur, et sic denudatus peste clamabit. Veni, Thank
If you're taking a trip with your friends, why pay for 4 hotel rooms to stay apart from your friends? Get an Airbnb and stay together for less.
I was watching Amadeus, about Mozart last night. He's a real interesting genius and a character.
Yeah, if you get a chance, go on YouTube and look up Carmina Burana.
Yeah.
And listen to and watch the performance videos, because it's just incredible. You could pay like tomorrow. There's a performance at the Lyric Opera House at 2:00. It's like $100. I mean, if you were in town, I'd take you, but I'm not gonna go by myself. And my point is, you can go on YouTube and watch the most amazing performances of all time. From the 80s, from the 90s, they're just incredible performances.
Don't they mesmerize you?
Yeah, they're just incredible because they're not new. They performed these things back in the 1600s, 1700s, etc. Whenever these incredible directors, creators, they're just repeating stuff. You see what I'm saying? Like they're playing it over. Not like if you listen to it and if you go on YouTube, you get my point.
I was just thinking about these music geniuses. What do they call the young children that have the
prodigies?
knack?
Prodigies.
Prodigy. I guess since mankind began, there were prodigies.
Yeah.
And that's how the world has processed learning through these prodigies.
Yeah.
I can't say I've ever met one. I see them. They'll have them come on a show. But it's interesting how their brains have been blown up to a higher ratio of learning. So I was just going over one of
Thank you.